We are on 18b2, Yudchet Amud Bet. Okay? So we discussed, if you remember, the idea that when a person is saying Bikurim, by the way, it's Majnun, the interplay between Masechet Makkot and the Parashiyot right now is out of control. We did, the whole last week was all the Pisukim about Makkot. This week was all the Pisukim about Bikurim, is what exactly we're up to. So the Gemara says that when a person separates Bikurim, they have to separate Bikurim and make the speech, right? About the forefathers and how Yaakov, Arami, the Armenian, tried to destroy Yaakov, all that whole thing. So the Gemara over there said, what happens if a Kohen eats from the Bikurim before the guy makes the speech? The whole thing was to bring the Bikurim to Jerusalem, to make the speech, and then the Kohen gets it. But what if the Kohen eats it before? So that was what the Gemara was talking about up until this point. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Oshia. Rabbi Elazar said, in the name of Rabbi Oshia, Bikurim, hanacha me'akevet bahen. When it comes to Bikurim, hanacha, the placement of the object, that's li'ikuva. So what does that mean, li'ikuva? So just to share what we're talking about. The pasuk over there says that you say this whole statement, and then when you finish saying the statement, what has to happen? He takes the basket from the Israel, and he places it in front of God by the Mizbeach. That placement of the Bikurim is so important to the process of Bikurim that if you don't have it, it's as if you didn't bring Bikurim. So sometimes there's something that's the best way to do it, but it still counts, right? And sometimes it's like, if you didn't do this, then it's as if you did nothing. Okay? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Elazar says in the name of Rabbi Hoshea, Bikurim hanacha me'akevet bahem. The placing by the Mizbeach, that's li'ikuva. If you don't have that, you have nothing. Kiriyah and me'akevet bahem. When it comes to the reading, that's not me'akev. So in other words, let's say, forget this case for a minute. Let's say a guy came, did Bikurim, I don't know, the guy blanked out. Let's say he was carrying 2 babies, with the basket. He came, he dropped the Bikurim, he left. He forgot to do the reading. What would be the halakha? The halakha would be he fulfilled his obligation of Bikurim. If he forgot, he read it, but he forgot to put it by the Mizbeach, it got left outside the Beit HaMikdash, then he did not bring Bikurim. Okay? Gemara continues. Umi Rabbi Elazar Hachi. Did Rabbi Elazar actually say that what you just said? V'ha'am Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Oshia hifrish bikurim kodem lachag. If a person puts bikurim sets them aside before Hag. Now, just an interesting thing. Whenever you say the word Hag without defining what it means, usually we're referring to Sukkot. Okay? Hifrish bikurim kodem Hag. He separates bikurim before the holiday. V'avar alehem ha'Hag, and Sukkot passed by, and the guy forgot to bring them. What's the halakha? Yirkevu. Okay? At that point, you're no longer able to bring the Bikurim to the Beit HaMikdash. It's too late.
You only bring Bikurim on Sukkot.
That's the final point to be able to bring them. Okay? The deadline. So once it goes past that point, Yirkevu. You should leave them to rot. Now, that sounds like very extreme. Except that it's not all that extreme. It's not as extreme as it might seem. Why? Because we have this idea in many different cases when it comes to Kodashim. Like there'll be a scenario of Korbanot where the person has passed the right time. So we say this idea, Yir'u ad shistavu. That sometimes with a Korban, we say, leave them, let them wander around until the animal gets a mum. Once the animal gets a mum, then you can't use it as a Korban, and then you could be podeh. So there are these times where we say you have to leave something because I can't interfere with the status. I also can't fulfill the mitzvah. So what do? I let it get to a point where the object is no longer viable for itself, and then I didn't play really a part in it being ruined or whatever. I just left it. Where else do you have this? By the way, this is fascinating. If anyone here has ever lived in Israel during a Shemitah year, so there's a thing that you're not allowed to throw away food from Shemitah.
Pour the wine in the water in the wine bottle to make sure it's not left over, right?
So you can't leave it, you can't throw it away. So what do you have to do? You have to leave it until it spoils. And once it's spoiled, it's no longer food, then I'm allowed to throw it away. Okay? So I'm pointing out this is not unique only over here. It's not like there's a law only over here of this concept. Okay? So If the bikurim has to be done during Sukkot and you left it till after Sukkot, what do you have to do? Yirkevu. My love, let us say, mishum lo matzil mikra alehem. The reason why you can't bring them anymore is because you can't say the Pesukim, because those Pesukim had to be said on Sukkot. And since I can no longer say those Pesukim, so now you see that I can't bring them. And if you hold that the reading of the Bikurim paragraph is not li'ikuva, in other words, it's not necessary, it's a good thing, it's not a make or break, okay? So then, why should we let them rot, right? Let me bring it to the Beit HaMikdash, I'll put it in front of the altar, and I just won't read the Pesukim. There's an association of the Pesukim with the holiday. But now that the holiday is gone, I could still bring it without the Pesukim, so it seems like that if Rabbi Elazar said this, he must hold that the reading is make or break, and that's why the only option is to let it spoil, let it get ruined. Gemara answers no. Kid Rabbi Zera, it's going according to Rabbi Zera. The Amar Rabbi Zera says, Kol hara'ui lebila, anything which is accessible or it's possible to be blended, okay? En bila ma'kevet bo. So then the blending is not make or break. And if it's not fit, it's not appropriate for blending, that's when it becomes a problem. So let me just give an example of what this looks like in a famous case. A person goes to the mikvah, correct? Where does the water need to get to when you go to the mikvah?
For a person or an item?
For a person.
Full depth?
Everywhere. The water needs to get everywhere. Ask the Gemara, so what about a person's mouth?
Consider it inside the body, maybe?
When I close my mouth, I'm opening, there's a whole opening here that the water's not getting to, okay? Now, if I take my arm and I put my arm next to my body, closing my armpit, so the water didn't get there, it's not a tevilah. So what's the difference? The Gemara says, on that idea, that what is a person supposed to do? You're supposed to go dip in the mikvah, but close your mouth, but keep your mouth loosely closed.
Really?
Like this. No, your mouth is closed. It's just that you're not pressing it closed. You're not pursing your lips. That's what you're not doing. Okay? The difference is that technically, when your mouth is not closed with strength, the water, if the mouth would be open a little bit, would be able to seep in. That's ra'ui, same concept. Ra'ui libila, when something could get somewhere, we consider it as if it did get there. Okay? But when you're closing it so tightly that it's impossible to get there, now you blocked off this whole place.
Same with your eyes?
Sorry?
Same with your eyes?
Exactly the same thing. Your eyes, a person's not supposed to do this, but he's allowed to close his eyes, which will, again, the water won't necessarily go in, but he's not squishing it off to the point where it's impossible for the water to get in, okay? We have many examples of this idea. Something which is ra'ui to is considered already like it is. I'll give you one more example. In the laws of Nizikin, in Baba Kama, let's say I take a priceless Ming vase, toss it off the roof. Halfway down, I see this thing coming out of the sky. I take my baseball bat, I wait. When am I going to get a chance to smash a Ming vase? Right? Smash it out of the sky. From my porch, from my window, wherever. Who has to pay for the Ming vase?
Person that threw it off the roof.
Person who threw it off the roof. Why?
Because it was going to break anyway.
Since it's ra'ui to be broken, something which is standing to break is already considered broken. I broke something that was already broken. Even though at the time when I broke it, it was not yet broken, but since had I done nothing, it would have broken, it's already considered broken now. Yeah, clear? So we have this concept in many places where we take an idea which is inevitable and we look at it even before it got to that point as if that thing already happened. Okay? So therefore, What's the Gemara answering according to the opinion of Rabbi Zera? What is the what's the comparison? Okay.
How is
Where are we?
like Bikurim?
See, go, take a look across the middle of Rashi Kid Rabbi Zera. Le'olam b're'uyin l'kirya lo me'akva kirya. Hava be'elu shava zmanan ve'enan ra'uyin od l'kirya me'akva kirya Kid Rabbi Zera. What the Gemara is bringing in is the same way Rabbi Zera says that you want to know if blending is a problem. It depends. If it was fit to be blended, we consider it as if it's blended. But if it was impossible to blend it, then that's when blending becomes a problem. You get that logic? So we're borrowing the logic, the words that Rabbi Zera uses, and we say as follows. If you did it at a time that you could have read it, then the reading is not make or break. But if you waited until a period of time when it was impossible to read it, then the reading becomes make or break. So, one more time. If I would have brought it in the right time before the holiday was over, even if I didn't do the reading, I could have done the reading. And since I could have done the reading, it's as if I did the reading. Whereas if I wait till after Sukkot, where the reading is no longer possible, so it's, so to speak, mufka from being able to read it, the reading of the Bikurim, so therefore reading becomes an issue. So in other words, that's how we're answering, using the logic of Rabbi Zera by the Minachot, by the blending of a mincha, where so long as I could have if I wanted to, then it's considered good, even if I don't, okay? Whereas, same thing over here with Kirya, Rabbi Elazar holds that really what's make or break? The placing next to the Mizbeach. The reading is not make or break. You know when the reading is not make or break? Those, says the Gemara, like Rabbi Zera. So long as I could have done the reading, I did it in the right time, the reading is not important, okay? But if I'm already after the period of time where I could have done the reading at all, then the reading is already and then the reading is a problem.
But why are we talking about the reading if you're after the time to bring it, when you had to bring it? If you don't bring it, then you can't do the reading. And if it's already after the holiday.
No, but but the reason why you can't bring it is because you can't do the reading. In other words, the only thing stopping me...
I thought we said the reading is, it's
not make or break.
But not make or break.
No, but that's exactly the point. The Gemara is asking that question. So first of all, we started off with saying Rabbi Eliezer holds that the reading is not make or break, the placing is. Then the Gemara says, what do you mean? But I show you a place where Rabbi Eliezer says if it goes till after the holiday, you have no choice but to let it rot. Ask the Gemara, why? If reading is not make or break, and the only thing you can't do after the holiday is read, so let me just bring it without reading. The Gemara answers that's true. During the time when I could have read it, even if I don't read it, it doesn't matter, because I brought it in the right time. Once I pass the time of being able to read it, now the reading is a problem. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, everyone understand?
But it doesn't make me...
And we're proving it, we're bringing the same logic for Rabbi Zera, who brings this with regards to the blending of a mincha, that the blending is not make or break, right? So long as you could have. But the minute you couldn't have, now it's already a problem. You need to have been able to read, is the point. That's really the nikudah. You got it? Now, can I just make this a little bit more logical for a second? Just using pure logic, yeah? The Torah tells you have to read, correct? Now, you want to tell me that the Torah is telling you the ideal way to do it, but you don't have to do it. I could buy that. Yeah? Does that fit? The Torah says, bring the Bikurim, and this is what you should say. What happens if you brought the Bikurim and you didn't say it? Is that the end of the world? I'll give you a crazy example, very similar to this. What happens if a person is sitting at the wedding and the rabbi says, repeat after me, and then give her the ring, and if she takes the ring, she's going to be married. Okay? Let's say the guy gives the ring and he doesn't say Harei Mekudesh Li.
It's kosher.
She takes the ring, right? He doesn't say Harei Mekudesh Li. What's the halacha? Married. Right?
Because the rabbi
married.
said it?
Because it was evident for what was going on, right?
You have witnesses.
The context, the witnesses, the consideration, everything tells you that this is what was happening, that she knows what's going on, He knows what's going on. So therefore, you don't need it. Now, what happens if
You're doing it in the
I'm not in the time?
A wedding.
The wedding. I just go to some G at the airport. I'm like, hold this for 2 seconds. Ah!
There was a case like
Nailed
that
it.
with kids.
No, the case of the kids was I was doing Kiddushin as a joke. That's the point. If I woke up to some G in the airport, she would never marry me, way out of my league. I woke up to her, I was like, sorry, I'm going to tie my shoes. Could you just hold this for 1 second? She holds it. You think she's Mekudesha? Of course not. Of course not. Now, what happens if I say, Hariyat Mekudesha li b'tabad, and she speaks and she understands, but she's like, I don't really know. Now we would have a
But
problem.
wouldn't putting it on the Mizbeach be the situation? That would be under the Chuppah, no? You're putting the Bikurim on the Mizbeach.
No, wait, I didn't get to my point yet. Let me make my point. So, as an example, so there are times when it's clear without saying that that's what I'm doing, okay? So maybe the Torah just means you should say it, but even if you didn't say it, you'd still be able to get it. But if you're doing it in a time where you have no option to say it, it's clear that that's not what the Torah was talking about. Because the Torah says you should say it. I hope that resonates. If the Torah told you to say it, so you could tell me, maybe yes, make or break, or maybe not make or break. But what for sure the Torah is not talking about is giving Bikurim at a time where you cannot say what the Torah told you should say.
One more time, that last part.
If the Torah says you should be reading this, and the only time you can read this is on the holiday. So now that I'm past the holiday, could it be that this is the mitzvah of Bikurim, right here, this one? No, why not?
Because the Torah told you to do it in that time.
Because the Torah told you to read it. And the only time you can read it is here. So if I'm out of the time of reading,
You can't read it.
I can't, no, I'm not doing the
You
mitzvah.
can't bring it, you can't do anything.
It's clear from the fact that the Torah told you to do the mitzvah, and the Torah only meant it, let's say, in an ideal way. But the Torah, by giving it to you in a way which is only relevant during the holiday, is also telling you that after the holiday, that's not what I meant. Yeah, that would be a logic, a simple way of understanding this idea of how it could be make or break in one case and not make or break in the other. Okay? Let's continue. Okay. So, Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov, matnila kid Rabbi Asi. Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov learned this exact thing that we just learned, but he learned it kid Rabbi Asi amar Rabbi Yochanan. Up until now, we learned it Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Oshea. Now, Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov is learning it in the name of Rabbi Asi amar Rabbi Yochanan. V'kashile Rabbi Yochanan ad Rabbi Yochanan. So, in the first case, we learned it as a law that was taught by Rabbi Elazar. The Gemara then brought a question on that Rabbi Elazar from another teaching of Rabbi Elazar. How could you tell me Rabbi Elazar says that reading is not make or break? You see that he says that if the holiday passes and you can't read, you can't bring the Bikurim. So we asked Rabbi Elazar on Rabbi Elazar. That's a stira. That's a contradiction. Okay? Now the Gemara says, if Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov learned that it was in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, he asked the question, a stira, contradiction between the teaching of Rabbi Yochanan and another teaching of Rabbi Yochanan. Kash Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan. What was the question? Rabbi Yochanan bikurim, hanacha me'akevet behem, kir'ad me'akevet behem. Could it be that Rabbi Yochanan said this opinion, that the main thing, the important thing, the make or break thing is placing it, the bikurim, but not the reading it? Is that possible? Rabbi Asi asked a question to Rabbi Yochanan. At what point does a bikurim become allowed for the kohanim to eat? Rabbi Yochanan said, the bikurim that you're supposed to read this passage on, mishikara alehem, from the point that you read the passage. That's when they're allowed to eat it. V'she'en re'uyin l'kiriyah, mishira'u pnei habayit. And bikurim, that there's no reading on the bikurim, mishira'u pnei habayit, from the point of time where the bikurim is exposed to the Beit HaMikdash. Okay? So the Gemara says, Kashya kirya akirya, Kashya hanacha ahanacha. Not only do we have one question on Rabbi Yochanan, we have two questions on Rabbi Yochanan. When it came to Rabbi Elazar, what was our question? Our question was on the make or breakness of reading. But now that you switched the author of this statement to Rabbi Yochanan, okay? Rabbi Yochanan's statement that he just made over here in response to Rav Asi's question is creating two problems for us with regards to Rabbi Yochanan being the author of this statement. Why? Because he said, when you have Bikurim, I want to look at Rashi. You see Rashi right in the middle of the page? Hariuyin l'kirya. You see that? Hariuyin l'kirya, about 3/4 of the way down. The ones bikurim that are supposed to have the reading attributed to them, me'atzeret ve'ad hachag, from atzeret until the Sukkot, mishir upnei abayit, mishich nesula azara, ve'hanacha lo ma'akevet klal. So we have two problems. One is that he says that the reading, you have to wait until after it's read in order to eat from it. If you're supposed to read, in other words, if it comes from the Bikurim that is supposed to have the reading read, the reading is make it or break it. And if it's not from the ones that are supposed to have the reading read, in other words, the ones that come at a later point, the ones that come after the Hag is over from Atzeret, so on those, what point are you allowed to eat them? From the minute it gets to the temple courtyard. So you see that he did not obligate you to place the Bikurim by the Mizbeach. So on two counts, Rabbi Yochanan cannot be this author. He can't be the author because of Kiryah, because he says that you have to wait until Kiryah and you can't eat from it before. And it can't be Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan in this instance is saying that in a scenario where there's no Kiryah, i.e. a Bikurim that's brought at a later point, that Bikurim, the minute it gets to the Beit HaMikdash, it's already good. You don't even have to place it. So Hanacha is also not obligatory. It's not make or break. As soon as it gets to the Beit HaMikdash, it's already kosher. The Gemara answers, Kirya lokasha. Reading is not a question. Why? Ha Rabbi Shimon, ha Rabbanan. Okay? This idea that we say that the reading is important is Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon, we already said earlier, holds that you have to read in order for it to be eaten. So Rabbi Yochanan, when he's saying the halakha over here, is following the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Ha Rabbanan. Earlier, when we were saying that Rabbi Yochanan said that it's not obligatory, that's the opinion of the Rabbanan. And the Rabbanan held that that you don't have to have Kiryah. And that's why Rabbi Yochanan was able to say that reading is not make it or break it. Okay? So basically, you have two opinions of Rabbi Yochanan. They contradict each other. The Gemara answers, of course, Rabbi Yochanan is answering in one case, according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, he was answering that one opinion. And in the other case, he was answering the opinion of the Rabbanan. So no problem. What about the other contradiction? Hanacha, nami lokasha. When you had a contradiction between whether or not placing it is obligatory, or if it becomes allowable the second it hits the temple courtyard, is also not a question. Why? Ha Rabbi Yehuda, this second statement, the one that he said to Rav Asi, that does not obligate Hanacha, is going according to Rabbi Yehuda, who never held that Hanacha by the Mizbeach was obligatory. And the other opinion, Vaha, where he said that it is obligatory, it is make it or break it, that was following the opinion of Rabbanan. So in other words, you're asking me why I said one thing over here, one thing over there. The answer is because in one case I was having a conversation according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, one case according to the opinion of Rabbanan. You want to know why I said one thing about Hanacha, another thing about Hanacha over here? In the first case I was talking about Rabbi Yehuda that doesn't oblige Hanacha. And the second opinion, I was talking about the Rabbanan that say that it's obligatory. And meanwhile, Rabbi Yochanan is not contradictory at all. Okay, now the Gemara says, how do we know that this is true? This last thing that I told you, that there's a machloket Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan, whether or not Hanacha is make or break. So we already had a machloket on whether Kiryah, the reading, is make or break. Now we have a machloket whether or not Hanacha, the placement of the Bikurim by the Mizbeach, is make or break. My Rabbi Yehuda, where's this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? The Tanya we learned, the Braita says Rabbi Yehuda Omer, V'hi nachto zu tunufa. When the Torah says, okay, V'hi nachto, and you will place it in front of the Mizbeach. Zu tinufa. That refers to tinufa. Tenufa means that they would take the bikurim and they would wave it. They would send it to each one of the different directions in the air. Okay, that's what vihi nachto means. Ata omer zu tenufa. You want to say that vihi nachto means tenufa, which means to wave it back and forth. Or eno ela hanacha mamash. Maybe it means you have to place it right next to the mizbeach. The Gemara says vihi nicho kishu omer v'hinicho. When it says vihi nicho, that's hanacha mamash. That literally means to place it. Amur, you already said it. Hamani mekayem v'hinachto. How could I have another time in the pasuk that it says v'hinachto? So one time it says v'hinicho, one time it says v'hinachto. Says Rabbi Yehuda, v'hinicho means put it next to the mizbeach. V'hinachto means that you should push it back in the air. When the kohen is bringing it, like the korbanot, sometimes they would take the meats, they would do what's called tenufa, right? They would raise it, put it down, a molich, mevi, back and forth, go to the 4 different directions. It's a part of the element of the creating the sacrifice. So the Gemara says, so Rabbi Yehuda says, v'hinachto refers to tenufa, and v'hinicho, and it must be so because v'hinicho means to place it by the mizbech, and you already told me that. Hamani mekayim v'hinachto zu tenufa. Okay? Now since Rabbi Yehuda is learning v'hinachto, does not mean to put it by the mizbeach. He learns v'hinachto means to wave it, to do the waving. If that's the case, we don't have the 2 instances in the pasuk that take it from a suggestion to a obligation. So, in other words, if he would say v'hinicho, and then he would say v'hinachto, and he would understand that both of those mean to place it by the mizbeach. So when you said it twice, you know the Torah means that if you don't have it, it's a problem. But Rabbi Yehuda that learns one of those 2 is referring to placing it, and one of them is referring to the waving back and forth that the kohen has to do. So therefore, I don't have a repetition locking it in, if you will, and making it obligatory. So according to that, Rabbi Yehuda would hold that if you did not put the bikurim by the mizbeach, it's not a problem. You still fulfilled your obligation. All right? That's what the Gemara says is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Uman tana de Rabbi Yehuda. So you just told me that there's Rabbi Yehuda and there's a Rabbanan. Who's this other opinion that argues on Rabbi Yehuda that says that hanacha is obligatory? Where do we find that? And if you don't have it, it's like you didn't bring the bikurim. The Gemara says that's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. That is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Titania, the Braita says, the kohen will take the basket from your hands. Limed al habikurim sheteunin tenufa. Rabbi Eliezer says that when the pasuk tells you that the kohen is taking it from your hands, it's already telling you, why is it mentioning taking it from your hands? That's the moment that the kohen goes back and forth. So once I have a pasuk for tenufa, so I have 2 pasukim, v'hinicho and v'hinachto, to refer to placing it. Once it says 2 times, place it by the mizbeach, I know that Torah means business, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds that placing it by the mizbeach is a non-negotiable. Okay? Limed ala bikurim sheteunin tenufa, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So therefore, that's Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov, and he's the one that argues on Rabbi Yehuda, and those are the 2 opinions of whether or not hanacha is obligatory, placing it by the mizbeach is make or break or not. Okay. The Gemara says, okay, I see what you did with the Pesukim, but why does it, just because it says the Kohen takes it from your hand, where do you see that means the Kohen's waving it up, down, back, forth? Maybe it just means, perforce, that the Kohen, the Kohen, he takes it from your hands. Well, who said it's a high school musical? What's the reasoning of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? The Gemara says, it's not just heke. Atya yad mishilamim. He learns a gzera shava that it says l'kacha kohen. The kohen takes hatene miyadecha from your hand. By korban shilamim, the pasuk says uchtiv yadav tiviena et ishe amonai. That he takes the kohen takes his hands and he moves the korban. He brings it close in front of God. So if by shilamim, when it says that the Kohen takes it in his hand, it's referring to this process where the Kohen waves the sacrifice. So also over here it says Lakacha Kohen tenami yadecha. That's a gzera shava, yad to yad, and therefore we know that's how he knows that pasuk is referring to tenufa. Makan Kohen, just like over here it's Kohen. Aflalan Kohen, also over there it's referring to Kohen. Malhalan be'alim, just as by the case of shilamim, it's referring to the ba'alim. Afkan, also over here the ba'alim, the owner, the ba'alim of the bikurim has to do the tenufa, the waving. Ha-ketzad, how does it work? Is it referring to the Kohen or is it referring to the owner? Which one is it? The Gemara answers, Ha-ketzad, how does it work? Meniach Kohen yadav tahat yedeh ba'alim umenif. So the owner of the bikurim has it in his hands. The Kohen now puts his hands under the hands of the owner. And together they do this tenufa. Because it seems in one place that we're talking about the Kohen doing it. It seems in the other place we're talking about the Baalim doing it. How do you have both of these work together? The answer is, it's a joint movement of moving it back and forth in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the Kohen placing his hands underneath the hands of the Baalim. Okay. Amar Rava Barad Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Ada, by the way, someone mentioned to me last week, they said, Rabbi, in these Gemarot that are a little bit complicated because of the Pesukim and back and forth, he says, sometimes I get a little lost, maybe I lose you. So I told him, don't be shy, just tell me to repeat, or tell me I didn't understand that, or there's something I need clarification. So is anyone, that's why I keep asking if it's clear. It's not that I don't respect your intelligence, it's that I don't respect your courage. No, it's that I want you to be comfortable and not have to say, Rabbi, pause, go back. I'm just giving you the opening, okay? Everything clear so far? Yes? Okay. Gemara continues. Amar Rav Bar Ada, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rav Ada Bar Ada says, in the name of Rabbi Yitzchak, Bikurim, mehem atay mechayvin alehem. At what point do we have a problem that you ate from the Bikurim when you're not allowed to eat from them? Okay? So, we already discussed this idea that there's a time and a place, there's situations where how the bikurim nut needs to be eaten. So the Gemara says, at what point does it become bikurim so that if you did something wrong with it, you did that thing to bikurim, not something that was gonna be bikurim. Okay? So when does it get the status of bikurim? So that if I did something that I was not supposed to do, let's say not eating it in Yerushalayim, let's say not the Kohen eating it, okay? At what point does that happen? The Gemara says...
When you set it aside and take it?
Sorry?
What does it become bikurim when I take it and put it in my basket? Or when I take it and, like you said, I sell it for the coin?
So remember, it's set aside for bikurim the minute you tie your string about it. Right. Yeah, in the beginning of its... So
isn't that when
but there's a difference. Yes, in terms of setting it aside, yes. But in terms of saying, I ate bikurim not in the right place, when does it attain that status? So the Gemara over here is telling you, Mishir upnei habayit, once it gets to the temple courtyard. Okay?
He ate it on the road, it doesn't have the status?
No. He's not allowed to do so, but he doesn't have the avon of eating bikurim. What did he do? He ate the fruit that was going to be the bikurim. Do you understand the difference? What happens? I'll give you an example. Let's say I don't tie the ribbon. So I have no idea which one is bikurim. What are you going to tell me? I can't eat any fruit? What would the halakha be?
You can eat it.
Can eat anything. The problem is that I didn't do the mitzvah of bikurim. So if I ate it before it became bikurim, then I just didn't do the mitzvah of bikurim. This is a whole nother chapter. Once it is bikurim and I ate from it, it's much more strict. Okay? The Gemara says, at what point is that? The point which is Mishir'u Penei Habayit. Okay? Once the house, your mother's calling you, is that a problem?
I have a couple minutes, I'll call her right back.
Okay. Yeah? Mishir'u Penei Habayit. Once, 1 second, it's 6:30.
Right.
Okay, so let's just do this last piece. Mishu bin Abai. The Gemara says, how do we know that this is true? Kiman. Who does this go according to? Ki Haitan, according to the Tana, the Tanya that said in the Braita, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Bikurim miktsatan bachutz miktsatan bifnin. Let's say you had Bikurim. Guy has a giant fruit basket, okay? Some of it is inside, some of it is outside. So not everything is already in. Shebachutz haren kichulin l'chol devrehen. All of the Bikurim that sit outside the perimeter of the temple courtyard are chulin, and anyone can eat them. Again, you're not supposed to, but if you ate them, you ate something that was not kodesh. Shebifnim, the fruits that are already inside the temple courtyard, haren kehekdesh l'chol devrehem. They are already considered to be hekdesh. They're kodesh. They're holy for all of the laws of the bikurim. So someone, let's say a non-kohen, was to eat the fruit on one side of the basket. Okay, he's no problem. His friend takes the peach next to that one that's in the thing, chayav mita. You got that? So you have a fruit basket, here's the line, half in, half out. Hada comes, grabs a peach, no problem. I come take a peach right over here, the next peach, I'm chayav mita. Because the minute it enters into the temple courtyard, now it's the status of fruit that I brought to the Bet HaMikdash of Bikurim. And that's only allowed to be eaten by a Kohen. Baruch Adonai Le'olam.